Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Shop. This is the podcast for product-based businesses where I speak to both retail buyers and brand owners about what it's really like to start and grow a retail business. My name is Therese and my mission is to help you build and scale a profitable business through wholesale. And today I'm going to be joined by Lucy Hitchcock, who's the founder of Partner in Wine and digital marketing agency Sassy Digital. Partner in Wine is a brand that aims to keep your favorite drinks perfectly chilled, on the go, or hot. And the story behind Partner in Wine is a tale of serendipity. It all started with the quest for a chilled rosé on a sunny day, and I am sure we will hear more about that. Sassy Digital is a digital marketing agency helping brands with their ongoing website, e-commerce, social media, and marketing support. And Lucy's also the host of the Winging It podcast, where I've also been a guest. We're flipping the script this time. I invited Lucy because Partner in Wine, she's gone down the less traditional route when it comes to getting into stores, as she marketed it so well that buyers came to her instead of the more traditional route of reaching out to them. So I can't wait to hear all about it. Hi Lucy, welcome to Let's Talk Shop.
So much for having me. I love how you described that as a tale of serendipity.
To be honest, I loved when ChatGPT gave me that.
Oh, there we go. You've got to be honest about these things, don't you?
Yeah, you do. I mean, I would love to be the kind of person that would use serendipity just casually, but I'm not. I thought we'd dive straight in and I would love to know a little bit, even before we talk about like what Partners Wine is, like how did you start to selling wholesale? Because I think it was just amazing the way you done it.
Thanks. So after 7 months of being launched, so I launched in July 2020, and then I got to March 21. So I think that's roughly around 7 months. So basically I'd always wanted to be stocked in Selfridges. And I feel like that's the type of thing that everyone says, right? It would be amazing if I could be stocked in Selfridges. But when I held my packaging, my final sample in my hands for the first time, I turned to my dad, and this is because we, during COVID in 2020, we were sat opposite each other on my parents' kitchen table working. And I said to my dad, that is going to be stocked in Selfridges. And he was like, yeah, I've got no doubt that it is. Just because I was looking at the packaging, I was like, this looks amazing. The branding was there. Obviously, I did all these things through Sassy. So I already had a kind of idea of what it takes, in my opinion, to build a successful brand. And now just to kind of like caveat this, because I think it's a lot of people's goals to be stocked in Selfridges, right? And I mean, I guess we'll go on to this a little bit later on, but I did actually ask them when they first reached out to me. I spoke to my buyer on the phone. I said, why, just out of interest, what kind of stood out? And one of the things is he said to me that it was the whole brand. It wasn't just that it was like a viral TikTok thing. And this is what I'm quite keen to sort of for people to see through my brand, is that I don't see myself as just another TikTok brand. And I don't mean that offensively to anyone who is a TikTok brand or has grown their business on TikTok, because it's absolutely amazing. It's so great that this platform can help so many people to live the life that they want. You know, if you want to be a business owner, you want to have freedom, you want eventually financial freedom, you don't want to be constrained to the kind of 9 to 5. It is amazing. But he said to me that the branding was what really appealed to them. And so when they reached out to me after I'd had this viral video, it's my very first viral video, the very same day they messaged me. I was sat at my desk here in this very room, just shaking from the adrenaline, not quite sure what to do, because I'd had tens of thousands of pounds worth of sales from this video. By about 3 o'clock, the email came through and I thought it was a joke. The subject line said, partner in wine stocked in Selfridges or something. And I was like, who's this joker? You think you're being funny, do you? And then I clicked on it, looked at the email, and it was legit. And I was like beside myself. And at that point, I did have a little cry, I'm not going to lie, because I was like, what have I done? And that was it. That was the first of many, actually, that I was stocked with. So that's kind of how it happened. But I guess how it keeps happening is keeping up with the marketing stuff, videos, TikTok, etc.
Yeah. And I guess because you had that marketing background, that's probably like where your strengths were. So it's natural for you to go down that route of getting noticed by marketing your products rather than reaching out in a cold email.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually horrendous on emails as well. Like, I'm so bad at replying to emails. So I don't think I'd get anywhere if I was doing that.
Well, I think that just shows that, you can build a brand in so many different ways, right? It doesn't have to be a one way, I don't know, lane or whatever. It just can be many different ways, and you should lean into your strengths, which I think is really, really cool. If we take a step back then, like, how did you start Partner in Wine? Because I love this story.
Oh, well, I'll tell it. I love telling this from the horse's mouth. I've said it so many times as well. So basically, just after the first lockdown in 2020, had my bottle of wine chilling in the fridge all day. Went to go and meet my best friend Maddie in the park for a socially distanced drink, like our very first one where we could, socially distanced from one other person that wasn't in our bubble. And I said to my parents, because I was living at home at the time, I said to my mum, well, by the time I get to the park, the wine's going to be warm. And she produced this really sad looking bag, which I've got a photo of. And I actually think I've got it somewhere in here, but I don't know where it is. But she gave me this really sad looking bag that was a sort of cooler bag for one bottle of wine. And I was just looking at it like, it's not really the vibe. Like, I'm a brand gal. Like, I love finding a brand that I'm like, yes, I'm so on board with, like, this. Give you an example, Adenola. Give me everything from that. Love it. I'm so on board with, like, the whole lifestyle. It's not just about the, it is practical and they are comfortable. I will give them that. Reasonably priced, but also I just love everything about the brand. It's just, that's my kind of vibe. So I thought, after one too many cold glasses, not cold glasses, warm glasses, because by the time I got to the park and taking it out of the cooler bag, I know a lot about insulated things now. 3 years down the line. It's to do with surface area, warm air, etc. It ended up going warm very quickly. So it wasn't really fit for purpose. Second to that, the bins were overflowing in the park. So I was going to have to, take off the foil, take my corkscrew, do all of that, then take it home and dispose of the bottle at home, because the bins in the park are largely destined for landfill. It doesn't matter if they say recycled on them. How many times will you put something in the bin where it says recycled when it's not actually recyclable,
Yeah. And the bag doesn't solve the problem if you have a corkscrew wine bottle. Like, it's not like you can stick it back in there without risking, your wine pouring out.
Exactly. So I was cycled home and I thought, there has to be a better solution, first of all. And secondly, if I was to create the solution that I'm thinking of, where is the opportunity to develop a brand around that people can really get on board with? And how can I create a community of like-minded people like myself? Because this is a problem I'm solving for myself. So if I'm solving it for myself, how many other people are having this problem right now too? And I actually think probably it was down to timing. This was like totally the right time to start the business. And then how would I kind of execute the brand? And so then again, down to branding. So I started looking for manufacturers. I then started basically documenting this journey through my personal Instagram, which is like my entrepreneurial sort of profile. And if people want to follow that, by the way, I still do that a lot. So it's at Lucy Hitchcock _. But people were really getting on board with it. I was getting new followers from this thing because people were discussing it. I mean, what else do we have to do in, you know, times where we couldn't socialize with people indoors? So people would say to their friends, like, oh, I follow this girl and she's starting a business, but I don't know what it is. And I mean, Partner in Wine's whole strategy is built on this whole, like, you don't know what's coming next. I mean, even today, just before I came on this call, opened Instagram. I've been doing something for a client, opened Instagram, and I've got 17 messages on there from not opening it in 30 minutes because I've got a launch on Friday and people are trying to guess what it is. They're all wrong, by the way.
Oh, I want to guess. No, I'm not going to guess because I'm going to get it wrong.
You know
I
what?
don't like getting things wrong.
I know. I also just like, people are like, oh, go on, tell me what it is. Even that one of the personal trainers at my gym, he's like, go on, Luce, tell us. And I'm like, no, you can wait like everyone else. Tell me a guess because you're not going to be right.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to get it. No, I'm never going to get it. So I'm not going to try.
Well, you're gonna love what it is. I know that you're going to love what it is. So I then, was documenting this process. People were following along. And then I love telling this story because this is something that I think people really overlook when A, starting a brand, or B, if you don't consider yourself to be good at marketing and you think that having 300 social media followers is bad or crap, or, you know, your following's not growing quick enough. I announced 2 weeks before I launched Partner in Wine, and I tagged Partner in Wine, and people were like, well, you're launching your own wine. I was like, no, I'm not. That's not what I'm doing. But keep guessing. And by the time I got to launch, I had 300 followers, which I was like, I think that's a good, you know, I think at the time maybe I had 3,000 followers. So that's like 10% of that, right? And I was like, this is good. You know, I'm chuffed with that. I'll take that. And when I launched, I had so many people on my website. I launched it on a live through Instagram. There was 100 people there out of the 300 people who followed.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, which is a very, very good statistic, I think.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's worried that you've only got 300 followers, I think about having 300 people in the room. If all 300 people are on board with your business and want to buy from you, then you're winning. It takes ages and ages and ages to build up the momentum, to build up your brand, to build up your following. Like it really does. But once you get into the swing of it, things get a lot easier. And I'm not saying that there's no sales dips in between then, but 300 followers. And then it took me ages to hit 10,000, to be honest with you. But I think most of those, to be honest with you, did come from TikTok as well. So and I had a good launch. I had a really good launch. People loved it. I launched in July, made a few £1,000s, made a few £1,000s in August. September dips down a bit. October, nothing.
I mean, the weather turned, I guess.
Yeah. I've only got 2 products at this point. Everyone who's wanted one has bought one. Well, that's not true, but you know, the range isn't huge. And then November had my first 5-figure month. And then it just kind of continued from there. And then March the following year was when I went viral. And that's when things really began to change for me. So little intro to the story of Partner in Wine.
And you know what I love about it is, you know, like, okay, 7 months is not long, but a lot of people would have said that you were like instant success, right? Because they would have started following you based on that viral video, and you know, you were still a young business, but you know, instant success doesn't mean one day. I think 7 months is pretty instant, but it probably didn't feel like it.
Like, I mean, let's bear in mind, I've been self-employed since I was 23. So I've been helping other people market their businesses since then. And so when people go like, oh, 7 months, that's really quick for all these things to happen to you. I don't think it is, because I think about my whole career, and I think about myself when I was 23 years old and I put through my first accounts for my first year of business, which was £16,000, which is, just bear in mind, that's not going all of my salary. That's going on like software costs, laptops, like, I wasn't making a huge amount of money for years. But I was just building up all of this experience for this moment, and that is how I see it. So one person's overnight success is another person's mine. What I would say is 7 years, 7 years watching, waiting, building up, helping other people, and then finally finding something that I wanted to launch because I knew how to do it.
And had you always wanted to launch a product, or was that just literally something that came into your mind then?
I don't think so. To be honest with you, I never, like, all the people, and I still work with clients now, all the people I worked with, I never once thought like, oh, I really wish that was me, because launching a product comes with a whole new set of stresses. Running a service-based business is so much easier because you don't have to outlay tens of thousands of pounds on stock. Or not even that much, but like, hundreds of pounds. You're not out of pocket. The only thing you're out of pocket with is your time. So very different challenges. But my dad would always say to me, like, have you ever thought about doing your own products? And I was like, well, I don't know, Dad, but I don't have anything I feel passionate enough about doing. And then it was when we came to lockdown, when we were actually sat in lockdown, I remember him saying, getting more like, oh, come on, Luce, like, there's lots of like lockdown brands that are popping up, people are getting creative. He's like, come on, like, surely there's something that you could do. And I was like, I don't really know, Dad, and I won't be doing anything until the moment that I think of something I'm passionate about, because I do think that it is a commitment to building a business. And I've had a lot of conversations with people recently. If people think that starting a business is like a get rich quick scheme, or a get rich quick scheme, or you think people start a business and they're instantly rich, they're instantly a success, that is just so far from the truth. Most of my money goes on stock. Like, I don't pay myself anything from Partner in Wine, which sounds hard to believe because I do turn over quite a large amount of revenue. But when you're a growing business, all of that profit has to go into stock. So it's not something I wanted to do. But then the moment I thought of it, I was like, I have the energy to see this through. And I actually could really see this like brand vision. And I was like, I can't get it out of my head. And I know that I'm the person that needs to do this.
Yeah. And I think the way you built it has been so fun to follow, like with like the wine tips and like the, I don't know, frozen jalapeno ice cubes or whatever it might be. Like anything like that. I just think it's so fun, and it's so like, it's a fun brand to follow, and I enjoyed the journey. What about the wholesale side? So Selfridges came knocking and you got over the initial shock, obviously, somehow. How did you make that then happen? Because just them getting in touch doesn't always mean that it's going to happen.
Well, I was like, yeah, amazing. This is cool. Sent everything through, supplier forms, blah, blah. And they were like, what your cost price? And I was like, no, sorry, what? I was like,
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't know. Sort of thought, how am I going to work this out? I thought, no, it's fine. I'll work it out. I then, a friend of mine who used to be a beauty buyer, who a few people might know, she's called Jem. She used to run a brand called Lunea, but she has now moved on to greener pastures. But she has a huge amount of knowledge about, obviously, retail, because she used to be a buyer. She knows how they work. She knows what kind of things to say. She knows what the margins need to be. And she basically coached me through the whole thing. Love her to pieces. She was literally like, and even in these moments where they sent me stuff and it was like the big scary things like, if you do not deliver the whole thing that we send to you, we will fine you, and we will fine you if you're late, and we will fine you if you're out of the time slot, and we will do this and that, and also we want a discount on the invoice, so think about what discount you want that to be, 1%, 3% or 5%. And I was literally looking at it like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this isn't fun. It sounds fun. This isn't fun. And she picked me up and she was like, she gave me a virtual slap and was like, you're doing this. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it. But nothing worth having comes easy, I don't think. And actually, really what that was, me having a mental breakdown about that, was me, I think, probably being a little bit scared about the brand growing so quickly and blowing up overnight, and me actually having to do some work that wasn't fun. So
yeah, because the forms are not fun. The math is not fun. Well, actually, I think it's quite fun, but yeah, for most people, it's not fun.
No, it's not. Also, the once you've done it once, you know how to do it again. So now, whenever anyone gets in touch, you know, we have align sheets, we have pricing, etc., etc. And also, what's so helpful is I obviously wanted to get my products stocked, but now when I release I wanted to get my original products stocked in Selfridges, in retailers, but I priced those products based on what I thought their value was, which is really not the right way to be doing things if you want to be in wholesale. And I think it's very hard once you set your prices to like up them. So one example I'll give is the everything blanket. The everything blanket is quite expensive. It's a luxury item. It's a very lovely item, but it's £145. I sold 160 of those on launch day. Great.
Amazing.
Reason that the price is what it is because if I sell that product to Selfridges, to Liberty, to whoever else, the price that I sell it to them at has to be in line with that price. So they'll have a certain expectation of what that margin that they're expecting is, and my pricing is in line with that. So whenever I release a new product, I'll look at what the cost price is before I've even placed the order, just to see if it's viable. In my head, I'm like, okay, I would like to charge, let's just say £20 for this mystery product. If I charge £20, am I going to hit the retailer's margin? And then moving back from that, if I charge £20, if that product has cost me £10, how much then do I need to sell it to the retailer at based on the margin that they're expecting? And the answer is probably less than £10 based on those margins. So it's a really interesting way now of thinking, because I have a lot of new products coming out. And so now when I'm looking at the pricing for those, I work forwards, if that makes sense. So I'll start from the top and then trickle it down to the bottom to the price that I've been given. And if that's not in line with what the pricing expectation for the full price of the product, the RRP, or the wholesale price, then I'll go back to the drawing board and be like, look, this needs to come down in price. Like, can we change the materials? Or I'll go and get a quote from elsewhere.
But I think this is a very, very important point, right? Because I actually think when you set the value and you price it based on value originally, I think you did a good job, because a lot of people price their products based on the cost price alone, right? And that doesn't say anything about the brand that you're building. You're not building a budget brand, right? You're building a brand that is a certain vibe and appeals to a certain person and a certain customer, or so I think you did a good job with that, and I think probably it served you better than a lot of times, because if you start on the value, more often than not your prices are going to go up massively once you start wholesaling. You're going to have to rethink your whole brand instead of just changing one price.
Well, I think also a lot of people do get quite nervous about their pricing, and you'll get one comment from, I don't know, someone wherever they are who doesn't want to spend £145 on a picnic blanket. If you're on TikTok, they'll bloody let you know that. And then you go, oh God, have I priced this wrong? Did I get it wrong? And then actually it's just like, well, okay, Chanel price their handbags at £6,000. Not everyone can afford that. How many handbags do you think they sell a year? It's like an aspirational thing. Or, you know, even for example, the Partner in Wine bottle, when that went viral, people went nuts in the comments like, £35 for a bottle. I was like, well, that's how much a water bottle costs. So, you know, what, like,
I think Lululemon's water bottles are £55. So I think, you know.
also, I took a picture the other day of a Nike plastic bottle, just a tiny little bottle, not, I would say maybe 250 milliliters, plastic. The whole thing made of plastic. It's not insulated. £22.
It's crazy.
I was like, do you know what though? Some people will buy it.
Yeah, and the thing is that will appeal to a certain customer, right? And I think that is like how it help your price can actually help you build your brand. You know, like Prada sells a hair scrunchie for 300 quid. I would never ever pay 300 quid for a scrunchie. I like nice scrunchies, but 300 quid. But for the Prada customer, if that was £25, they would be devaluing their brand massively.
Oh, 100%. Even £100. I mean,
Yeah.
£300, certainly not. But there's plenty of people that would.
Yeah. And for them, that's an entry level price point. So they probably sell a load of them just because it's the cheapest thing they do.
Yeah. People want a piece of the brand.
Yeah. Yeah. So since you launched in Selfridges, how has the wholesale been going? How have you gone about it?
They just keep sending reorders in, Therese.
Which is great.
Yeah. I mean, they are great. They sell a lot. And do you know what? One thing I will say is I've learned that my products sell better in store. So now when I get retailers that are like, we're going to test them online, I'm like, that's not going to work for you. I can tell you that now. Oliver Bonus stocked them online and as a trial, one colour. Oliver Bonus is a place I would go and buy a gift. So I was like, this is perfect. Didn't want to put them in stores and don't think they sold particularly well on their website. But then there was no promotion. There was no, nothing around that. The same with another retailer. It's like a fashion retailer, also sells gifts. Same with them, tried them online. Didn't work for them. Didn't promote it. Didn't put them in store. And I get it to an extent. You want to see what your best selling stuff is online and put that in store. Yeah, I mean, it has been interesting working with retailers. I think one thing I will say is that they're always so busy. And I mean, people have probably said this on your podcast before. You've probably said this before. And I think actually we've discussed this on my podcast as well, is if you don't get a reply, you really have to just be ruthless, because it's not that they're not replying because they don't like you. It's that they're not replying because they're busy. They're not buying that stuff at the moment. They don't want to do a reorder because they don't need to, or you've just not gone about it at the right time. For example, if I was emailing Selfridges about Christmas stuff now, they'd be like, well, you missed the boat because the Christmas store opens in September.
Mm-hmm. And it takes a while to learn all those things, right? You almost need like a whole retail year to really get in tune with the retail cycle for different types of retailers. But I guess also you just have to ask the retailers when they want to see things. So, what kind of tips would you give someone that is like, oh, I want to be stocked by Selfridges or Liberties or whoever it is? What would be your tips?
I would actually say, and obviously I said this at the beginning of the podcast, but I would really say to try your best to get your brand right before you do anything else. And it's really difficult when you're starting a business because, there are certain areas that, we're bootstrapping in. But brand building is really not one of those areas that should be bootstrapped. Whether that's bootstrapping in terms of time. If you don't have a lot of time, you should be spending your time building your brand. So, making sure that you have a really strong brand identity, making sure that your social media pages match your website so that when people land on your website, your virtual shop front, it doesn't look disjointed, because then people will wonder if it's fake, whether it's real, etc. And if you're not used to these things, or you don't think you understand it, just Google it. It's so easy to learn these things if you just dedicate yourself. So definitely look at your branding, really try and get that right. When you're building a brand, I always say to people, and friends of mine will come to me and go, I'm thinking of changing my logo. And I'm like, but everyone knows you for being X, Y, and Z. And your logo is recognizable. This is why I've never ever changed the Sassy Digital logo. I've never rebranded. I've only ever slightly tweaked the colors. The fonts have remained the same, everything. So that if people land back on the page, they'll go, oh, I visited this website actually, or I heard about them from X, Y, and Z. So I just think fannying around and changing your branding when you're a young brand is the worst thing you can do. So if you can get it right from the get-go, doesn't have to be what you necessarily want it to be, but it has to be what your customers want it to be and what the actual whole premise of the brand is. So yeah, that would be my first tip. My second tip would be, can you see your items being stocked on the shelf at wherever you want it to be? And if the answer is if the answer is you don't know, go into the shop. Let's look at Oliver Bonus, for example. You go in there, you get to the till. So many brands buy the till. There's so many brands stocked on the shelves. The way that they lay things out in that store is very much, similar in each of the stores. Anthropologie, another good one. They've got a whole gift section by the tills there. Would your product be standout in that situation? If the answer is no, then you need to do something about your packaging, whether that's your
so important,
or the box. And if you really want to make your business work, you will have to spend money in those areas. That is just a fact. You can't produce something that looks like it's homemade and expect it to sit on a shop floor, because it's just not the way that it's going to work. The reason is, obviously, if you're competing against loads of other brands in a shop, you want that packaging to stand out because you want people to go, oh, what's that? That's interesting. And that can even come actually down to your brand name, because people probably look at Partner in Wine and go, what's a partner in wine? And that intrigues them. So, and then just making sure that everything that you're creating, whether you're on camera and you feel comfortable doing that or not, making sure that it's in line with that brand. So, for example, with Partner in Wine, everything's super fun. It's like, I'm just here to have a good time vibe. And that's what, drinking a glass of wine is like. It all kind of like seamlessly soaks into one. Whether or not I want to be on camera that day or not, I'll always post something that is in line with that. I'll never just post something, willy-nilly, because you want everyone to get on board with it. And I think I've built a brand that people are so on board with and supportive, whether that's customers at home or brands. One example I'll give is Morrison's. Bloody love them. They are so great. The guy from Morrison's always sends me messages like hyping me up on Instagram. Like, and they even sent me a pink bottle of champagne to celebrate the Everything blanket launch and just said, like, congrats.
Wow.
It's like so nice to be able to have those kinds of contacts. And I guess I do have a lot of I scratch your back, you scratch mine, promoting other brands and wines, etc. But making sure that you can actually get people on board with your story, on board with your products, is really going to help you if you want retailers to reach out to you, because that's how it's happened for me. People have gone, oh, I saw your video on TikTok. I saw you did X, Y, and Z. You've got to get yourself out there as much as possible, but social proof that your products are selling will make you even more desirable to retailers. And so if you're doing well on social media, unfortunately, that's the world we live in, but like if you're doing well on social media and brands can see that, retailers can see that, then that will definitely help your cause as well.
And, there's lots of ways around it, but I think the whole going down the social media route is so interesting because it's just another take on it. And it's using like whatever, I guess, modern tools there are to not only grow your retail sales, but in the way you've done it in one way, but grown 2 sales channels, which is pretty awesome. So what is coming up now? What are the future plans? Obviously, product launches that we're not sure what they are yet. Well,
I was
you
going to
are,
say,
but
I'm not revealing my future plans on the podcast.
but you have new product launches that you will be marketing, I guess, loads. And yeah.
I will always say to people, come and watch me do a launch, because I don't want to blow my own horn, but I am. So it's one thing that I'm good at. It's building that anticipation for a launch.
Yeah.
And this is how you can like emulate that success, is watching what someone does. Don't watch it from a place of like, I really like that post. Look at it from a place of like strategy and frequency. Like, how often am I talking about my new products? And what am I actually doing in order to get them out there? And so like mechanical wise, looking at like, am I sending people to sign up to a mailing list to be the first to know or to be the first to shop? Those sorts of things. You can do it with any brand, but I do it quite well.
I think you do an amazing job, but I actually think that's a really good point. It's also not like, you do it really well, but because you share it openly on social media, it is actually quite easy for someone to sit down and go back on your feed and look at, okay, what was the purpose with this post? What did she actually say? What was the call to action? And equally with stories. And like, just think about how many times you mentioned that you have an upcoming launch. It's just, you can get really geek out about it and watch it from that kind of perspective, not just like, yay, I'm ready to buy something, but
I think it's really good to get yourself, if you have a business and you don't consider yourself good at marketing, I do it naturally because I am a marketeer by trade. So if I see something, I'm like, what the hell are they doing? And I need to make sure that I'm like watching what they do over the next X, Y, and Z. Or I can see brands who have that sort of mentality. One particular brand I'm thinking of, they follow Partner in Wine, and so for their new launch, this is the strategy that they take, and I'm like, that's really cool. I mean, not saying that that's down to me, but I have noticed brands who I love and follow haven't, and we have that kind of reciprocal relationship, things out as well, which I think is really cool. And that's the best part about social media, is one brand finding another brand and then kind of watching what they do and how they do it. That's exactly how I had a viral video in the first place. Watching other small businesses, seeing what they were posting on TikTok, how they were telling their stories.
Yeah. And, then you put your own spin on it and bang. And also there's some familiarity then, I guess, for the viewer too. Even if it's a different spin on a video format they like to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
If people listening wants to connect with you, whether that is for Partner in Wine, for the product-based side, or if they want help with their digital marketing, how can they do that?
You can find me on @Partner in Wine UK on Instagram and TikTok, and you can also find my website on there as well. And then on Instagram, you can find me @LucyHitchcock_ or @SassyDigital, and websites are on there as well.
Amazing. And obviously I'll pop that in the show notes as well. So thank you so much, Lucy, for coming on the podcast. It's nice to chat and do the opposite thing from on your podcast and hearing your story a little bit more. And thank you everyone who's listening. I hope that you are enjoying the season so far. If you are, you can of course share and tag me over on Instagram, or if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment or a thumbs up. I'd love to know more about what things you want to hear and who you want to hear from. And then the podcast will be back next Monday with another episode. So I hope to see you then.